Good morning, Europe. Thank you for starting our day with us. Here's a look now at Monday's top stories.
Kyiv and Moscow to resume talks as Ukrainian soldiers brace for further attacks by Russian forces north of the capital. As many elderly and animals are unable to move to safety, some decide to remain in Irpin to take care of those left behind. And Iran drops missiles close to a US consulate complex in northern Iraq. The United States has strongly condemned the strike.
Ukrainian officials said around 5,500 people were evacuated from frontline cities on Sunday. Ukraine and Russia are expected to resume talks today, but this time via a video conference link. Moscow has justified its attack on a military training base near the border with NATO member Poland as a legitimate target. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken thinks differently, writing on Twitter that we condemned the Russian Federation missile attack on the International Center for Peacekeeping and Security in Yavorik. The brutality must stop, he says. Dozens of wounded soldiers from the attack were brought to the hospital near the military base of Yavorik. At least 35 people were killed and more than 130 injured. On Sunday, Russian state media released footage of what it said was a column of Russian military heading towards the Ukrainian capital. The Ukrainian authorities have been reporting increased fighting and gunfire within Kyiv in recent days. Ukrainian soldiers say they are bracing for a larger attack by Russian forces who are stationed just north of Kyiv.
They are adjusting fire by shooting mines on positions. They are preparing to go on the offensive against Kyiv. That's why they are trying to scare us.
President Volodymyr Zelensky, who conducted a morale-boosting visit to wounded soldiers in a military hospital in the Ukrainian capital, has once again called on NATO to impose a no-fly zone, warning it's only a matter of time before Russian rockets fall on NATO territory.
As the war rages on across Ukraine, killing hundreds, devastating cities, and forcing millions to abandon their homes in search of safety, a handful of people have decided to remain in Irpin to care for the elderly unable to leave and the animals left behind.
There's nothing left here. Now we are collecting stray animals and feeding them, because people have left them behind and moved away. There's food where I live, there's a fireplace. I simply cannot understand why one would destroy this. There were people in that part of the house, but thank God they were outside, and they also left 15 minutes later. Have a look.
For some, leaving is impossible.
To leave? Where would I go?
Shall we go to Kyiv?
I won't go anywhere. What happens, happens. I'm too old.
There was a lot of bombing this night. I was hoping the front line would move away from us, from Irpin, so we decided to stay. But now, after such bombing, it's unbearable.
The UN estimates that 2.6 million people have fled Ukraine, with many still leaving each day. For those who remain, the future is dangerous and uncertain.
A security camera on a TV studio captures missiles hitting close to a US consulate complex in northern Iraq. Iran has claimed responsibility, saying it was in retaliation for an Israeli strike in Syria that killed 2 members of its Revolutionary Guard earlier this week. Satellite broadcast channel Kurdistan 24, which is located near the US consulate, went on air from their studio shortly after the strike, showing shattered glass and debris on their studio floor. No injuries were reported in the attack on the city of Erbil, but it marks a significant escalation between the US and Iran. The attack drew harsh condemnation from the Iraqi government, which has called it a violation of international law and norms and has demanded an explanation from the Iranian leadership. The United States has strongly condemned the strike, saying it was an unjustified attack on a civilian residence.
Spain could become the new gas hub of Europe as the European Union plans to disconnect itself from Russian gas before 2030. At present, the country boasts 45% of Europe's liquefied natural gas storage and one-third of European regasification work, a process that converts liquid gas back into natural gas.
We have an extremely versatile and flexible system. We can digest gas from a variety of sources. Last year, for example, we received gas from 14 different countries. We also have 2 connections via pipelines with France. So without a doubt, we are a key player when it comes to diversifying the supply of natural gas to Europe.
Spain has one of the most extensive gas infrastructures in Europe, with a huge storage capacity for gas arriving by vessel and also 2 pipelines connecting straight with the gas fields of North Africa.
But the supply hits a bottleneck when it reaches the Pyrenees. New and bigger connections with the European grid are needed if Spain really wants to contribute to energy security in Europe.
We are talking about guaranteeing the energy supply in Europe, and this new infrastructure could be critical. So I think that right now the political will is much bigger and probably the access to funding too.
But the Spanish government has also requested any new gas connections with Europe to be compatible with other renewable energy sources such as hydrogen and biogas.
One of the priorities in the future to reduce our dependence on Russian gas and meet our decarbonization targets is renewable hydrogen. And we believe that Spain has an important role to play in this matter.
The administration is working around the clock to ensure energy supply by the end of 2022, but as Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine, Europe may be forced to face a cold winter. Jaime Velázquez, Euronews, Madrid.
José is a taxi driver from Madrid who is about to embark on a journey to take humanitarian aid to the Polish-Ukraine border. TV footage showing the war and a group of his colleagues volunteering to help motivated him to join the relief effort.
I was so terrified that I had to change the channel because it felt bad seeing women and children who were there, all lost and among the bombing. But this action was thought up by various people. It came up and so I decided to join.
Drivers pick up the much-needed humanitarian supplies at various points in the city. The Ukraine Association, which has been collecting food, clothes and all kinds of aid for the last 2 weeks, is one of the stops on their list.
All these people are very generous, very generous. They're dropping their work and they also have their families to look after and support. Making this gesture, well, it's priceless.
Some 30 vehicles have already left Madrid for Eastern Europe.
This is not the first time that Madrid taxi drivers have shown their solidarity. On the 11th of March 2004, during the worst terrorist attacks in Spain, they provided their service free of charge. More recently, during the pandemic, they provided free transfers for health workers and the elderly.
The capital's airport acts as the group's departure point. The initiative has also attracted the help of retired taxi drivers who still have big and reliable vehicles.
If it's okay with them, I take goods there and on the way back I load up with the luggage of all the people they are bringing here. And that's how things are playing out. My colleagues and former colleagues all like this idea. I'm still quite well known in this little world of taxis because I used to be one of its players.
From Madrid to the Ukrainian border, the trip can take up to 40 hours. The drivers are giving up 5 days' salary to make the journey, a sacrifice they are more than willing to make.
You're watching Good Morning Europe. Do stay with us. Lots more to come on the programme.